Before the web, we have the internet. So basically, the um, the web is built on top of the internet. The internet is a global network of interconnected computers and devices that communicate via protocols like TCP and IP. All right, just like what we are doing right now with the help of internet, we are able to connect. We are able to perform this virtual class. All right, so internet has actually solved a lot of issues when it comes to connecting computers or connecting people together virtually or remotely. Then we have the World Wide Web, WWW. All right, so it is an information space where documents and resources are identified by URLs and accessed via browsers. So WWW is actually a famous phrase which I believe everyone is familiar with. So it is an information space where documents and resources are identified by URL. So what is URL? URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator, and is nothing more than the address of a given unique resource on the web. All right. So it uniquely identifies a particular information on the web or a resource. So it consists of a protocol, e.g., HTTP, that's Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, and then domain name, and then optional paths and parameters. All right. So HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and the protocol basically is a set of rules that govern a particular thing. So on the web as well, if we are sending requests, okay, so we need to rely on a particular protocol, and the protocol that we rely on the web is the hypertext. Basically, hypertext is a text. It could actually be a plain text, but that plain text acts as a link. Okay, a link whereby when you click on it, it will redirect you or take you to or a particular location on the web. So this is the protocol used for transferring hypertext requests and responses between clients and servers on the web. And then we have the other one, which is the HTTPS. So it's the secure version of HTTP. So Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. So a secure version of HTTP that encrypts data transmitted between the client and server. So basically, if you are creating a website, right, and if that web application is going to contain sensitive data. So example is, if you are creating an e-commerce website, an e-commerce website is a website whereby people buy and sell, and it involves online payments whereby people will enter their cards information. So this is a good example of a sensitive information. So you actually want to rely on a secured protocol. So HTTPS is a perfect example or a good protocol to rely on in that situation. And then we have the IP address. Okay, so IP address stands for Internet Protocol. So this is a numerical label, as you can see, a label like this, 192.168.1.1. Many of us might have seen something like this. When you see a digit like this in computer, it is called Internet Protocol or IP address, Internet Protocol address. So it is assigned to each device connected to a computer network using the Internet Protocol for computer. Everyone's computer right now everyone's computer has a unique IP address. My PC has a unique IP address. Everyone's devices right now has a unique IP address. Two PCs or two devices cannot have the same IP address. Otherwise, there won't be a way to identify each computer on the internet. And then we have the DNS, domain name system. So this is an hierarchical, decentralized naming system for translating domain names to IP addresses and vice versa. It enables humans to easily remember and access websites using domain names. All right. So, during the early days of the web, right, or the early days of internet, if you want to access the web, there is no human-friendly name. People access or online visitors, they access websites using IP address, something like this, a numerical label like this, right? Now imagine you have about 5 or 10 websites that you want to visit in a day. That means you need about 10 IP addresses, and it might be very difficult to remember these IP addresses, or probably you may have to be working with them or write them in some notes. But with the help of domain name, which I'm going to explain shortly, right, we can easily access this website. But then this domain name system, the job is to translate a domain name into an IP address or an IP address into a domain name, as the case may be. All right, and then we have the domain name. Domain name is human readable label that represents the numeric IP address of a website server. It is used in URLs to identify and access websites. So a good example is, let's say, if you want to access Facebook, for instance, you open up your browser and then you enter www.facebook.com. So everyone is familiar with that kind of URL, right? But then, before the request gets to the server, right, there is a conversion or a translation from a domain name into an IP address. So this domain name helps visitors to remember the website or the or whatever site they want to visit on the web. So it is easy for me to visit Instagram because I know the URL as what www.instagram.com. So I don't need to cram any IP address to access Instagram online. Then we have the browser. Browser is a software application program that provides a way to look at and interact with all the information on the World Wide Web. I'm very sure everyone here has actually interacted with a browser before. It could be Chrome, it could be Mozilla Firefox, it could be Opera Mini, it could be the Internet Edge. So it is a software application, right? You open up your browser, you use the search engine to search whatever information you are looking for, and then you get back the response based on your request. Now we have static sites and we have the dynamic site. So first, this static site is one that returns the same hard-coded content from the server whenever a particular resource is requested. So first, we have the Web 1, that's the early days of the web. Basically, we create websites to share information. When web was introduced, we create websites. So just take a blogger as an example. Bloggers, they share information, right? So it could actually be information about the country, politics. It could be about education. It could be about religion. It could be about entertainment. So we share information. So, and we believe this content cannot change. Now, a perfect example is a newspaper. If you go to any newspaper vendor, right, and you get yourself a newspaper, if you keep that newspaper from now to the next 5 years, the content of that newspaper will not change. That is what we call static. So if the content is not changing, it is called static. Now, on the other hand, we have dynamic sites, right? So this is one that can generate and return content based on the specific request, URL, and data. All right. So a perfect example is Facebook or even WhatsApp. Nowadays, you can now edit messages, right? On Facebook as well, you can create posts, you can edit your post, you can delete your post. So a website or a web application that allows this kind of operation is called a dynamic site. Now we have SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. This is the process of optimizing websites to increase visibility and ranking in search engine results. It involves various techniques such as keyword research, content optimization, and link building. Now, the truth is, we have a lot of online creators, we have a lot of web designers, we have a lot of businesses that that they have hosted their websites online. Now, if you are creating a website, right, you have to optimize your site. Otherwise, there is no way Google or whatever search engine you are using or your visitors are using will rank your site on the first page of that search engine result. So search engine, the job is to optimize your site to what? To ensure your site is visible, to increase the online presence, all right, of your site. So search engine is actually a broad topic, and we have to do another separate learning for that. All right, then we have the front end and the back end. Basically, the front end of a website is the part that users interact with. Everything that you see when you are navigating around the internet, from fonts and colors to drop down menus and sliders. So permit me to quickly show you guys an example. Basically, so for instance, if I visit in Netflix.com, for instance, Even without Netflix, basically what you can see right now is called the front end. Now look at Netflix website. You can see the logo, right? Netflix, you can see this sign in button. You can see some text, right? Typography, the color, the input field here, the alignment of of each text and the positioning of the content that we have right on the site. So all this is what we call the front end. All right, what the user can see, what the user can see at that point, or you can call it the user interface of a web application. Now we have the back end. Now the back end is that area of web development that focuses on how a website or web application works. It is what happens behind the scenes. That is the business logic of an application. Now, the best way I can explain this right now is that is the difference between the front end is if you if you visit a particular website that requires you to create an account, for instance, right? I think a perfect example is Netflix. Now, get started. I'm coming, ready to watch. Enter your email to create or restart your membership. Now, that means Netflix requires me to what become a member before I can enjoy their site. So which means they need my information. Now the front end is that I can see the form and then a button, right? So if I enter my email, for instance, my email, it's simi@gmail.com. Then I will click what get started. So I'm not going to do this anyway. Now the moment I click this get started, right? Now something is happening behind the scene. So what is happening is what we call the back end. So you don't, as an online visitor or as a website visitor, you don't need to know what is going on. So there is an abstraction in between the front end and the back end. All right. So the user or the front end user doesn't know what is going on. It's just like a switch. So take a switch as an example. If you want to switch off or switch on the light, all you need to do is to interact with those buttons. So you click to the top or you click down, and then the lights will either come up or the lights will go off. But behind the scene, if you open up the switch, you're going to see a lot of connection wires, right? And in most cases, some of us don't really know what is going on. All we know is that if I click the switch, something will happen. If I click down, if I click up, something will happen to the light. So that is a perfect example. So next up, all right. So the request and the response life cycle. Request and response life cycle. This deals with how a request, e.g., an address of a given resource, is sent to the web server where it is hosted, and then the web server in return respond when all the files that makes up the resource and then render them on the user's browser based on the code in the files. Okay, so if we are talking about the request and response lifecycle, which is what I think everybody does whenever you're on the web or whenever you open up your browser and you interact with the search engine. Now, first you have your system, which is the client or your phone, as the case may be. Now you open up your system or your phone, and then you open up the software, your browser software, and then in the search engine you enter the address or whatever thing you are looking for. For instance, it might be that you want to learn how to cook something, or you want to learn how, probably you have an assignment and then you are looking for the information. So right in the address bar, you type in the keyword and then you send the request. Now at that point, you are sending what a request. So I guess yeah, request and response life cycle. So as I was explaining, um this is what we do every time. Anytime you open up the browser and you're looking for a particular information, the first thing is that you open up your system and then you use your browser software, maybe a Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, and then okay, the request and response lifecycle deals with how a request, e.g., an address of a given resource, is sent to the web server where it is hosted, and then the web server in return respond with all the files that makes up the resource, and then render them on the user's browser based on the code in the files. So, as I was explaining, whenever you open up your browser and then you enter a particular keyword or you are searching for a particular information, At that point, you are sending a request, and the protocol we use is the HTTP. So can someone tell me what HTTP stands for?
That's hypertext transfer protocol.
Yeah, thank you. Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So this is a protocol that we use whenever we are sending requests and if you are getting the response back from the server. So when you send, now if you want to visit a website like Instagram or Twitter or TikTok or your favorite website, you open up the browser and then you enter www.facebook.com. I have explained the other time what domain name system is. Now, before that request gets to the server, right? So there is a layer which is the domain name system that translates that domain name. Now, www.facebook.com is the domain name, right? And the server does not understand a domain name. So what server understands is IP address. So which means we need a way to translate that domain name into an IP address before we can actually get the response from the server. So which is the job of the domain name system? If you remember, we have the domain name system here. All right. System for translating domain names to IP address. To translate domain names into IP addresses and vice versa. So like I said, the server does not understand a domain name. So the job of the domain system is to translate that domain name into an IP address. Now, when Facebook domain name has been translated into an IP address, right, then it will go to the server. Now, server consists of a lot of IP addresses. The server will now test the request, that is the IP address that is coming from the domain name system, and test it against all the IP addresses on the server. If there is a match, it will download a copy of that site, of that information that you are looking for, and then send all the files. It will send it back using the HTTP, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol response, right, back to your computer, either to your system or your phone or whatever device you are using. So again, let's take this. This life cycle deals with how a request, okay, is sent to the web server where it is hosted. So you send the request to the server where it is hosted, right? Web server in return respond with all the files that makes up the resource. So it will respond with all the files, HTML files, CSS files, JavaScript files, everything, all right, and then render them on the user's browser based on the code in the files. So let me just show us an example right now. Now, the other time I visited netflix.com, right? Before then, this screen was not here, right? So I waited for a few seconds and then after then I get this screen, right? So if you open up the developer tool, for instance, and you go to the network tab, you're going to see all the files, the HTML files, all the files that make up this website. Don't worry, we are going to explore more on this. But just know, whenever you send a request, the domain name system will first change the domain name into an IP address, and then you go to the server, and the server will get a copy. At least that's if the IP address is available or if there is a match on the server. So if the IP address you send to the server matches any of the IP addresses on the server will download a copy of that information and then send it back to the client.